very much for joining us today. So you have had a long and varied career at Nissan, a real car guy. Maybe you could talk about some of your background, some of the skill sets and perspectives that you've learned that you brought to the CEO position.
Well, I joined Nissan almost 25 years ago. I was born and raised in Mexico City. I'm a mechanical engineer by formation. I started getting close to cars when I was like 6 or 7 years old because my father was an engineer. My grandfather was an engineer. So I come from a family of engineers and car people. So since I was very young, I was working cars with my father, changing brake pads and doing all these things. Then when I was around 15 years old, I discovered Nissan in a different way. So first, Nissan is a very popular company in Mexico. We started in operations around 1960s. The first factory outside of Japan was established in Mexico. So you can imagine the brand is very present in Mexico. But it was known more as a company that makes reliable, affordable cars. Yeah. When I was around 15 or 16 years old, I discovered the 300 ZX, which is one of my favorite car in a way, or Nissan. And it made me look at Nissan in a different way. So this was a very strong influence into myself, growing with cars, discovering the power of Nissan and what Nissan was capable of doing when it came to technology. And this is one of the reasons that drove me to join Nissan. So I joined Nissan in Mexico as a product planner. So what I was doing was working with commercial vehicles, doing specification checks, starting to design the strategy of commercial vehicles for Nissan in Mexico. After that, I was assigned temporarily here in Japan. The headquarters was still in Ginza back then, but I spent around 6 months here in Japan working for a special project. And then after that, I went back to Mexico, worked in marketing, worked in sales. I was the head of a fleet sales department in Mexico for around 2 years. So I got very close to customers and understanding how they experience and live products. I also had the chance to get close to our dealer network and understand from their perspective how the business is run. So that gave me a lot of sensitivity to the downstream side of the business. After that, I was offered my first overseas assignment, which was in Thailand. So I spent 2 years in Thailand, working for the Southeast Asia region. My main job was to first establish the program director's office, which is the function that basically oversees new vehicle projects. And I was assigned to do that and also to lead the first exported car from Thailand to Japan, which was the Nissan March. So I was working there from 2008 to 2010. So I spent a couple years. Then I went back to Mexico again, overlooking at the whole South America as a head of planning. So the total responsibility of lineup planning for Mexico and South America, I was leading that. It was an interesting experience because it was the first time I was managing a multicultural, cross-functional, cross-regional team. So we had offices in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. Different nationalities, different agendas from the different markets. And it was an interesting exercise to learn how to drive a larger organization, how important a vision is, and a strategy, and how important it is to engage people towards a common goal. After that, I was assigned to Europe. So I was appointed there the vice president for product planning and strategy. So I spent a couple years there, same thing. Multicultural team, one of the most challenging markets in the world, the European market, where you compete with the big leagues. So you have the German manufacturers there, who are very, very competitive. So it was a very good learning in terms of competitiveness, designing strategy, and understanding how tough the market can become when you're a small player. Because I was coming from a market like Mexico, where we were the big boys, so it was easy, let's say, to compete. But then you suddenly are coming into a market where you're a small fish and the strategy and the thinking should be different. So I spent 2 years there. And then exactly 9 years ago, I was assigned to come to Japan in the capacity of a program director. So program directors, we have here in Nissan, the organization of the program directors are basically, we call them the CEOs of a product. So these are people that have around 4 or 5 products under their responsibility. And they are in charge of planning the future product, but also to manage the existing product that is sold. And they are sitting at the center of the organization with product planning, manufacturing, engineering, finance, marketing, and sales, everybody moving around them. And they are, as I said, the CEOs of a program. So I was in charge of the D segment, basically products that are sold in the US and China back then. Products like Murano, like Altima, like Pathfinder, this kind of large vehicle. So I spent around almost 2 years as a program director. And then I was appointed the vice president of product strategy and planning for Nissan globally, which was, first a really exciting opportunity for me, coming from where I started. You heard my story, Nissan fan, and starting from the very ground up, and then suddenly having the opportunity to work in the central office in charge of a total portfolio of a company, working very close with the head of design and designing the product of the future. So was really, really exciting. And after that, I was appointed the chief planning officer, which is a job that oversees design, product planning, and basically the whole area of future product development. And I was in charge of that for around 4 years, a little bit less than 4 years. And then suddenly the big news came of, hey, we'd like you to be the next CEO of Nissan. And well, I was shocked in a way, humble, but very happy and very pleased to have the opportunity to lead this wonderful company that I've dedicated my life to. Yeah.
Oh, very
So
good.
that's in short my story and my history in Nissan. Yeah.
Very good. And my father was in auto parts for 35 years, but I never learned how to do any of those things that you mentioned. But you certainly have seen all parts of the business. So all the major auto manufacturers are global in nature, but Nissan is a little unusual in terms of their structure and their history. So with that background, how do you navigate in terms of getting all the global operations cultures onto a single strategy and execute a game plan?
Well, in a way, maybe I would say it's easy for me because I always say, like, I'm Mexican, but I was born and raised in Nissan because this is where I started my journey. And I know almost everybody in the company. I know so many people because I worked in all these markets that I explained to you. And of course, people comes and goes and they move around, but they're always there, and you're always working with somehow the same set of people in different capacities, but you're still working with them. So in a way, I have a very deep network in the company. I also understand, because of all these roles that I've had and that I've moved around different regions, I understand where our strengths lie and also where the areas of opportunity are. Spending all my life in Nissan, I know how to deal with Japanese culture, Japanese business culture. Right. In a way, it's somehow easy for me, I would say, because I'm not seen as an outsider. I'm part of a company, and the people that I work with today, I've worked with them for the past 15 years or so, in the same different capacities, but always working together to find a common goal. So when I was appointed CEO, first thing I did was to, of course, relook at what the state of the business was and choose my team. Yeah. So we made some changes in the senior leadership team. This is the people that trust me and I trust. So we had very open discussions about the state of the business and about what the expectations were, and the fact that we had to have a very strong alignment among us in order to drive Nissan back where it belongs. And so far the team has been super supportive, very disciplined, very diligent, and we have created what I think is the best atmosphere in the Nissan management that I've seen in my career. Yeah.
Well, autos have always been a cyclical, very competitive business. It's been made even more difficult with tariffs and other trade issues. So how do you, in this kind of environment, maintain the automotive industry has a very long investment cycle.
Right.
So how do you maintain your flexibility and cost competitiveness given these disruptions?
Well, the good thing about Nissan is the global footprint that we have. We have manufacturing operations in almost every continent of the world. The difficulty was that we were too big for the revenue that we were commanding. So we couldn't entertain such a big industrial footprint in terms of capacity. So with the Nissan Plan, what we did was to resize this industrial footprint, but keeping the flexibility. So we keep our coverage worldwide in terms of industrial operations, which is a very good thing these days because with all the geopolitics that are happening, every week you wake up and you read something new. So having this flexibility is, of course, a good strength, which we are keeping. but we are resizing a bit the total capacity that we have installed in our industrial system. But this provides, again, the flexibility, the easiness to transfer production, the easiness of looking at our supply chain and optimizing, like what we are doing today with tariffs. To give you a few examples, in the US, we are accelerating some transition of components from today having some duties or tariffs burden to places where we don't have the tariff burden. And we can do that because we have a strong supply chain base and a strong engineering network in the different plants where we operate. And this is what we're doing. One of the things that we are leveraging on to make front to the tariff situation. Yeah.
Okay. And the Nissan Plan, you lay out some very specific targets. How is it going so far? And have you had to change any of that because of what's been going on in terms of tariffs?
Yeah, well, the targets, as you said, were very specific. So we're aiming to saving 250 billion yen in fixed costs and 250 billion yen in variable costs versus the FY24 result. And we have put in place a lot of measures. Of course, on one end, on the fixed costs, you have a restructuring of the operations, where we had to take make some difficult decisions, like closing some factories, one here in Opama and the others so far in Mexico. We also reorganized our production and industrial footprint in India. We also stopped production in Argentina. So we have made a lot of progress in a relatively short amount of time. And this is showing already. Our fixed costs are coming into a lower base because of the amount of depreciation that you're carrying less so. And this will be even more next year, because then you will start seeing the full year impact of having written off some of these fixed costs and starting to see the depreciation costs going down. On the variable cost side, we put in place a very specific program. First, we appointed a leader for it. His name is Tomita-san. He's a great engineer, and he is our chief transformation officer for the cost part, and he's leading this variable cost effort. And what we basically did, or what he basically did, was to put in place what we call obeya. Obeya is a Japanese word that means big room. So you put all the functions in this big room with a common goal, a common vision, common target. And then they were just tasked with the big challenge of finding these 250 billion yen on variable cost reduction. So they went into looking many things, starting from revisiting our standards for design of cars, relooking at new technologies, new processes in engineering, new material applications, checking if the specifications of a car were in tune with the market or not. So a multitude of activities that were deployed across all the portfolio. And we start to see now the fruits. So he came up, or the team has come up with around 4,000 ideas that are now on the way to be implemented. It's a bit of a long process, because as you start identifying the ideas, you then have to validate that these ideas are technically possible. Third, that they are making economic sense. And once that is done, you can release the engineering change, right? But between releasing an engineering change and seeing it into production, there's still some time, because you have a stock of parts, you have a stock of cars. So it takes some time, but we start to see the ramping up of the savings coming through. So the progress is good, is solid, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Right. Okay. So as a result of what's going on lately, you haven't had to change from Nissan in terms of the long-term manufacturing footprint?
No, actually, when we started Nissan, we already did this with the thinking of where we wanted to be in the future. Understanding that there were things that we had to protect, as we were saying earlier. The geopolitics were already taken into consideration. We already understood well which areas of our industrial footprint were competitive, which areas we needed to protect for flexibility. And we just, set a bit the plan chronologically to start moving into the restructuring of the different sites that we have identified.
Okay, very good. Speaking of electric vehicles, so it seems like the industry and the market is changing the forecast in terms of the adoption globally. Is that something that you also change your forecast, and how does that affect your production?
Right. No, you're absolutely spot on. And we've seen changes in many markets in the world. Probably the one that has changed the least is China, where you still see the new energy vehicle mix strong. There's some adjustment in between the EV and the plug-in hybrids, but the reality is the mix of new energy vehicles is still strong. Then you have Europe, where there was a deceleration indeed that started when some of the countries started to remove the incentives or the subsidies for electric vehicles.
Right.
So we started to see a little bit of a slowdown. We do think that the electric vehicle will remain as a final goal, let's say. We start to see a window of more hybridization in the market. So, and this is true for Europe and also true for the US.
Right.
In the US, we see the same phenomenon after some subsidies being removed, which is actually happening as we speak.
Yeah.
We do see some deceleration of the EV and some acceleration of the hybrid market growth. And we have adjusted, of course, our portfolio in consequence. We have, of course, a lot of experience on electric vehicle, and we have transferred this electric vehicle experience into our hybrid technology, which is called e-Power.
Right.
Which is a great technology because it's a blend of a hybrid and an electric vehicle. So the wheels are driven by electric motors. So you get the instant torque and instant acceleration of an EV, but you have a gasoline engine that works as a generator of electricity that then is moved to a battery that is powering the motor. So you get the EV experience without the need to having to be charging or having anxiety, because you can just go to the gas station, fuel your car, and then you get the range that you need. Yeah. So this is what we have accelerated, and it's going to come to many markets, many more markets. We have sold already more than 1.5 million cars with this technology.
Okay.
Most of them in Japan and in Europe, where we have just launched our third generation system, and we will continue deploying that technology worldwide.
Okay. Very good. You mentioned China. You've got a product introduction coming up there. Talk a little bit about, given the overcapacity competitiveness in that market, how you're positioning that product and your go-to-market plans.
Well, we just launched the N7, which is one product that was first planned with the Chinese customer at the center.
Okay.
So we come from an era in which most of the Chinese products were global products that were developed for some other markets and then, marketed in China. But the market has moved into, the customers have evolved differently, and they have moved into their own very unique requirements and tastes. Technology moved very quickly, and also the new energy vehicle trend grew dramatically. So this asked us or pushed us to really rethink our go-to-market strategy, where we put, again, the Chinese customer at the center. So this product is planned, designed, and engineered in China. So the design, of course, was led by our global design head here in Japan, but the product was engineered with our team in Dongfeng Nissan, the JV that we have in China with Dongfeng Motors, and using the cost, the speed, and the technology of China. So it's a product that is very competitive. It was placed at the right pricing, and it has taken off very successfully, and fingers crossed it will continue to do so.
Right.
So thanks to this product, we have now 3 months in a row of year-over-year sales growth, coming after multiple months of decline in our sales performance. So the formula is working, and it's a proof that the Nissan brand is still very relevant in China, which is the toughest market in the world. But it's telling us that once you plan a car well done, which is something that we are good at as Nissan, once you plan a good product with the customer in mind, the Nissan brand can still hit strong in China. And so we're doubling down. So we will have 3 more cars following the same philosophy.
Okay.
We have an N6, which is slightly smaller than the N7 with a plug-in hybrid powertrain. And then we'll have 2 SUVs, an EV and a plug-in hybrid SUV. All of them very nicely planned and sequenced so that we keep the good pace and momentum. And again, fingers crossed, this will help us continue the positive trend that we're achieving so far.
Very good. And certainly the Chinese manufacturers doing very well abroad. Are there any hurdles do you see, or are they expected to continue on the same trajectory?
Well, I'm hoping that I can help them slow down a bit. And the way we will do it is actually by leveraging on these products that we have engineered for China with China cost, speed, and technology. We will be exporting many of these cars to some selected markets around the world to basically defend our territory from some of these aggressive Chinese competitors that are coming with this cost, technology, and speed that we also have. So we're just leveraging on that advantage that we have in China to come and defend our markets worldwide.
Okay. In terms of product development, how are you using AI intelligent vehicles, and how does your partnership with other manufacturers play into that in terms of innovation, technology, and cost efficiencies?
Well, AI is really changing the way we do things. Yeah. And as part of Nissan, one of the targets that we gave ourselves was to shorten our development process.
Right.
The first car in the family of cars will take 37 months to be developed from zero to the start of production. And the follower cars in the same architecture will take only 30 months. Now, some people comment, yeah, but Chinese are doing it in 24 months. Yes, when you do that for one market. In our case, this is multi-markets. As we were saying earlier, we have a very wide footprint of operations. And these timings that we have given ourselves are very competitive when you consider that these cars can go to any market in the world. Yeah. And one of the tools that we are using to achieve that is AI. And to give you a few examples, we are now using heavily AI in the design process of Nissan. So we are coming from an era in which we started with the designers sketching, and there was a bit of an early selection of sketches. And we had like what we call a go with three, where you had 3 clay models, actual size, and you had the executives coming in and choosing, and then you go with a go with 2, and then you go with a go with 1, and then the refinement process and so on. Well, all that is gone. Yeah. So now we have the designers starting with AI to create multiple sketches in a matter of minutes. Yeah. Instead of having them draw all these things, they are becoming experts with AI, and it's very easy for us to quickly, have a view of how the design looks like, how close it is to the concept. Is there any refinement that we have to do in this very AI early phase? And after that, instead of having these big clay models, what we do is we use augmented reality. So we have a decision-making process in which you have people with their goggle set, right? And we are looking at the design with AR. So, and if we like something, we pick it, and then if we give some feedback, they can adjust actually almost on the fly, saying like, no, maybe give more volume to that fender, or what if we change these lines and so on. And it's very easy to review, and even you can do that remotely. So I can do that from my office here instead of having to go all the way to the design studio in Atsugi. So this is saving a humongous amount of time and resource in the company. And this is just a design piece. We are doing all this across the different stages of the process, where we have shortened a lot the testing process, for example. The way we utilize prototype parts. There's many things where AI is playing a very interesting role.
Well, you certainly covered a lot of ground in terms of production strategy, product innovation, design. How do you see all this playing out for Nissan in the next 2 or 3 years?
Well, we are now starting a phase of a very aggressive rollout of product. We are starting, let me give you a quick summary. So Japan, we just introduced all new Leaf, which is a complete full renovation of the Leaf, which is one of our signature products. Then right after that, we're just launching as we speak the Nissan Rooks, which is a small K car. K car in Japan is the biggest segment in the market. So we're coming with a very interesting offer at the heart of the market in Japan. After that, we will have El Grande. So El Grande is our minivan, which is a flagship. It will be featuring the 3rd generation e-power system. So our hybrid e-power system will be in this car with our autonomous technology, ProPilot 2. Completely hands-off technology that you can just let the car drive for you. And this will be coming in the El Grande. And then right after that, we will have a renewal of the kicks. So all new kicks. And all that happening in around 14 or 15 months. Right after which we will introduce the Nissan Skyline, which is what I want to call an icon of speed, not only because of what Skyline represents as a car for a customer, but because it will be the first car that will be running under our new process of accelerated development. So it's an icon of speed for what it is, but also for what it represents inside a company. So that's the case of Japan. Then moving to China, I think China, I elaborated a bit. So we have N7 that was just launched. We will have the N6. Then we have 2 SUVs. And we have also introduced a plug-in hybrid pickup in the market. And all of these products will be exported. As I was mentioning, we recently established an export JV company with our partner Dongfeng to accelerate the export of these models. And with this, as I was mentioning, we will have a good way of competing with our Chinese competitors in Chinese terms by using cost, technology, and speed. And then we have the case of the US. And in the US, we started already some time ago with the Armada, which was just launched, our full-size SUV. Is working very well. It's a fantastic truck for the US market. Then we just launched the full new renovation of Murano, which is doing also very well. It will be followed by an Infiniti crossover QX65. Then we will have a renovation of an all-new Sentra. Yeah, and all that will be then followed by the addition of a plug-in hybrid system in the Rogue. All that will be happening between now and the end of the year. Yeah, so it's an amazing way that we have of product. And right after next year, we will have the all-new Nissan Rogue, which will be featuring our new e-power technology coming into the US. And with that, we will be hitting at the heart of a market, which is growing with a hybrid technology in the US. So we have a lot of product coming in, a lot of great technologies coming in, and I'm convinced that we will be doing a very good, or surprising our customers in a very positive way.
Okay, very good. Well, that's obviously a lot on your plate. Emor, we want to thank you for spending some time with us today, and best wishes on all your efforts.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed a lot of the time. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.